Welcome to Episode 2, The Stormclaw's Rise. Amara's fingers found Dameon's wrist, her claws pricking his skin just enough to draw a bead of blood. "Teach me," she demanded, her voice stripped raw. He grinned, all fangs, and dragged his thumb through the crimson smeared on her palm, marking her cheek with it. "First lesson," he rasped. "War isn't fought with claws alone." He turned, barking orders to the pack. Scouts sent slinking into the night, smiths hammering blades in the forges below, the air thick with the scent of molten steel and anticipation. The fortress became a living thing, its pulse syncing with hers. Dameon hauled her onto the battlements at dusk, the wind tearing at her hair as he pointed to the distant peaks where her stepmother's banners fluttered like cowards' flags. "Your bloodline doesn't make you a queen," he said, gripping her chin when she tried to look away. "This does." He pressed her palm to the stone, still warm from the day's sun, and beneath her fingers, something hummed, ancient magic, buried deep. The fortress recognized her. The carvings twisted, snarling wolves, morphing into storm-wreathed crowns. A howl rose from the valley below, not from the pack, but from the land itself, answering her fury. They trained in the crypts after midnight, where the bones of fallen alphas whispered strategy. Dameon didn't hold back. He fought her in the dark, claws shredding her sleeves, his growls teaching her what words couldn't. She learned to track by scent, to taste betrayal in a stranger's sweat, to map a battlefield by the way ravens circled. One evening, she pinned him against the altar of the Stormclaw ancestors, her dagger at his throat. He laughed, breathless, and dragged the blade down to his chest. "Good," he rasped. "Now twist." The War Council convened in the guts of the fortress, maps unfurled across a table stained with old blood. Scouts whispered of her stepmother's alliances, mercenary packs bought with silver, villages raised to root out rumors of Amara's survival. Seraphina slammed a rusted dagger into the map, splitting the traitor's stronghold in two. "Burn their granaries first," she snarled. "Let them starve before we strike." Amara traced the inked rivers with a fingertip, remembering the way her stepmother's guards had drowned dissenters in the icy currents. She looked up, eyes glinting. "No, we build a dam and divert the water." Dameon's claws flexed against her lower back, approving. The pack smiths had forged her new armor, blackened steel etched with lightning, pauldrons shaped like bared fangs. When she strapped it on, the metal hummed against her skin, resonating with the Stormclaw sigil newly branded between her shoulders. In the torchlight, Dameon adjusted the buckles at her ribs, his breath hot on her neck. "The armor remembers its last queen," he murmured. She caught his wrist, pressing his palm to the brand. "It will remember this one too." If you are enjoying Dameon and Amara's story, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. The night before battle, the pack's howls echoed through the mountains like a storm gathering. Amara stood at the cliff's edge, tasting snow on the wind. Dameon found her there, his shadow merging with hers. Without a word, he gripped her jaw, tilting her face toward him. His thumb brushed her lower lip, smearing it with the blood from his freshly split knuckles. "You fight like her," he growled. "My mother?" she breathed. His nostrils flared. "Mine." Then his mouth crashed into hers, iron and wildfire, his fangs nipping her lip until she gasped, not in pain, but in triumph. The pack's howls rose to a crescendo around them, sealing the vow. He didn't kiss like a man. He devoured like a wolf claiming territory, his tongue mapping the roof of her mouth as if memorizing her for the hunt. Amara bit back, her claws sinking into his shoulders, drawing blood that mingled with the sweat slicking his skin. Dameon snarled into the kiss, hauling her against him until the leather of their armor creaked. Somewhere below, Seraphina barked a laugh. "Finally," someone muttered. Amara didn't care. She licked the salt from his throat, feeling his pulse hammer against her teeth. "Mine," he rasped, but it was her teeth at his earlobe that drew the possessive growl from his chest. The War Council chamber reeked of tension and smoked meat, the long oak table scarred from 100 blades slammed in argument. Amara traced a fresh gouge in the wood, Dameon's doing, when the grizzled scout had suggested burning the villages and leaving orphaned pups to fend for themselves in a land that would be scorched and bitter. Poison. Now, she leaned over the map, her shadow stretching across the inked stronghold like a storm cloud. "Any of her people who kneel," she said, voice quiet but carrying. "We take them in." The pack elders hissed. Seraphina's claws flexed around her tankard. "Mercy is a knife in the gut," the warwolf spat. "You'll regret it." Dameon hadn't moved from his place at the head of the table, but his nostrils flared, as if scenting the shift in her resolve. His golden eyes pinned her, not in challenge, but something darker, hotter. "You'd let them live?" he he rumbled, the words thick with the unspoken, after what they did to you. Amara straightened, her new armor whispering like wind through dead leaves. She remembered the cook's whip, the cellar's cold, but also the scullery maid who'd slipped her honey cakes when no one was looking. They were hers, she said. Let them choose to be mine instead. The pack erupted. A younger male slammed his tankard down, ale sloshing over the rim. Weakness, he snarled. Amara didn't flinch. She merely turned her palm up, exposing the thin scar where her stepmother had once pressed a hot spoon for daring to speak at supper. Mercy isn't weakness, she said softly. It's a weapon they won't expect. Seraphina's ears twitched, her stormcloud pelt bristling. But when she spoke, it wasn't a snarl. Clever, the werewolf grunted, tossing a bone into the fire. Let them kneel. Then watch how fast their loyalty crumbles. Dameon's claws scraped against the table's edge, his gaze molten. He inhaled deeply, as if tasting the air between them, scenting strategy, not surrender. Slowly, his lips curled. You'd have them beg, he murmured, approval darkening his voice. Amara bared her teeth in something too sharp to be a smile, not beg. Choose. She dragged a fingertip across the map, smudging the ink where her stepmother's banner flew. Every wolf that bends the knee is one less blade at her command, and one more at her back when she turns to run. The war council fell silent, their breaths held taut as bowstrings. Even Seraphina's stormcloud fur settled as she leaned forward, amber eyes narrowing. And the ones who don't kneel? She growled. Amara's fingers twitched toward the dagger at her hip, the one Dameon had gifted her, its blade etched with lightning. She met each warrior's gaze before answering, her voice low as embers. Then they'll learn why the Stormclaw queens were called the Furyborn. The silver-pelted elder hissed through her teeth, but her eyes gleamed. Dameon's laugh was a blade unsheathed. You heard your queen, he snarled to the pack. We hunt at dawn. Dameon found her on the battlements later, her silhouette carved against the blood-red moon. The wind tore at her braided hair, carrying the scent of distant snow and steel. He didn't speak, just pressed his chest to her back, his arms banding around her waist like armor. She leaned into him, her spine molding against the heat of him, his heartbeat thudding through her borrowed gambeson. His claws traced the Stormclaw sigil branded between her shoulders. A silent question. Amara turned in his embrace, gripping his wrists hard enough to feel the leap of his pulse. You knew, she accused. His golden eyes burned, but he didn't deny it. I scented the Stormclaw in you the moment I saw you, he admitted, breath hot against her temple. But you had to find it for yourself. She snarled, pressing her forehead to his, their breaths mingling, iron and wildfire. His lips skimmed her scarred knuckles, then her palm, lingering over the crescent-shaped birthmark. I would have kneeled for you, he murmured, voice rough as the mountain wind. Amara shuddered, her claws pricking his ribs through his tunic. Don't kneel, she ordered. Fight with me. His answering growl vibrated through her bones as he hauled her flush against him, his mouth crashing down on hers. This kiss wasn't gentle. It was a battle cry, a promise written in teeth and blood. She tasted the venison he'd eaten, the ale he'd drunk, and beneath it all, the raw, untamed hunger of a wolf who'd waited lifetimes for his queen. Armor clattered as he backed her against the stone parapet, his thigh sliding between hers. The distant torchlight painted his fangs gold when he broke the kiss to scrape them down her throat. You'll wear my mark when we ride, he rasped, easing the sting with his tongue. Amara arched into him, her nails carving crescents into his shoulders. I'll wear your enemy's blood first, she shot back, biting his earlobe hard enough to draw copper. He laughed against her pulse, one hand fisting in her braid to tilt her head back. Below them, the pack howled, their voices weaving with the wind, a symphony of fury and fealty. Dameon's grip shifted to her waist, hauling her onto the ledge where the wind whipped her hair like a battle standard. His growl vibrated through her ribs as he pressed his forehead to hers. Look, he ordered. The valley sprawled beneath them, her stepmother's torches flickering like cowards' fireflies in the distance. Amara inhaled, tasting pine and impending snow, and something hotter. Vengeance. His claws traced the brand between her shoulders. Remember whose bones you walk upon. The fortress groaned beneath them, as if the Stormclaw dead stirred in their tombs. The pack surged forward at dawn, their war cries splitting the frozen air. Amara rode not at the rear, but beside Dameon, her blackened armor drinking in the weak winter light. The first arrows rained down, her stepmother's archers hidden in the pines, but she didn't flinch. She raised her arm, and the storm answered. Lightning sheared the sky, striking the trees where the bowmen lurked. Their screams were sweeter than any feast. Seraphina howled her approval, fangs glinting as she tore into the first line of guards. Weak, the werewolf spat, shaking blood from her pelt. Like their queen, Dameon fought like a force of nature, his claws painting the snow crimson. He didn't glance back at Amara. He didn't need to. She felt his snarls in her bones, his movements guiding hers, as if they shared one mind. When a hulking mercenary lunged at her, she pivoted, using the dagger's edge to slit his throat in one fluid motion. The spray hit her lips. Salt. Iron. Power. She licked it away, her pulse roaring. The fortress gates loomed ahead, her stepmother's banner snapping in the wind. Amara bared her teeth. That flag would burn. Amara scanned the battlefield for her stepmother. She found her, retreating from the fighting like the coward she was, into the wood line. Amara ran into the woods after her, calling out her cowardice. You would run? From me, who you said was nothing. Amara taunted her. Her stepmother, atop her horse, twisted the reins in her jeweled fingers. Too tight. Her knuckles were a ghostly white. Pathetic, the woman hissed, though her voice wavered. A stray pup playing queen. Amara didn't rush. She walked slowly, her boots leaving bloody prints in the earth. Amara's claws unsheathed with a wet click. You stole my mother's crown, she said, voice soft as a blade sliding between ribs. But you never earned her throne. The stepmother's laugh cracked like thin ice, arrogant and defiant to the end. I earned it with her blood. Dameon prowled behind Amara, his growl vibrating through the trees. The mercenaries that had come to her stepmother's aid edged away, their boots making soft thudding sounds in the dirt. Amara tilted her head, inhaling deeply. Sweat. Poison. The sour tang of a lie. You told them I was weak, she mused, flexing her crimson-stained claws. The stepmother's pulse fluttered in her throat. You told them I wouldn't come back. Lightning split the sky, painting the stepmother's face in jagged shadows. Amara smiled. Here I am. The stepmother's fingers twitched toward the dagger at her belt. Too slow. Amara lunged, slamming her into the mossy earth with a crack that sent startled crows wheeling into the sky. The horse reared, but Dameon caught its bridle in one clawed hand, his snarl silencing its panic. Amara braced a knee on her stepmother's chest, feeling the fragile give of ribs beneath silk. You should have killed me when you had the chance, she whispered, pressing her claws to the woman's jugular. The stepmother spat, her lips peeling back from teeth stained with venom. I should have fed you to the hounds. Amara's laughter was a blade dragged across stone. She leaned closer, inhaling the cloying perfume that had once made her gag in the solarium where her stepmother held court. Now it mingled with the reek of fear. You smell like rot, Amara mused, tracing the stepmother's jaw with a claw tip. Not just your soul. Your blood's gone sour. The woman thrashed, but Amara's grip was iron, the same grip that had once dragged her from the cellar by her hair. Behind them, the mercenary's boots scuffed the dirt, but Dameon's growl froze them mid-step. The stepmother's breath hitched as Amara's claw pricked her throat, drawing a bead of crimson that dripped onto the moss like a poisoned berry. You took everything from me, Amara murmured, her voice honeyed with venom. But you forgot one thing. She pressed harder, feeling the flutter of the woman's pulse against her claw. You taught me how to starve. The stepmother's eyes widened, not with fear, but recognition. Amara had stolen her lessons well. Hunger sharpens teeth, betrayal tempers claws. Lightning cracked before Amara even raised her hand. The air sizzled, ozone searing their lungs as the sky split open above them. The stepmother barely had time to scream before the bolt struck her chest. Not with the chaos of nature's fury, but with the precision of a queen's vengeance. Her body arched off the ground, silk and jewels blackening as the scent of scorched flesh curled into the air. Amara watched, unblinking, as the woman who'd banished her to the cold convulsed once, twice, then stilled, her eyes glassy with the reflection of storm clouds. Dameon's claws flexed at his sides, his nostrils flaring as he scented the battlefield. The mercenaries had frozen mid-retreat, their weapons slipping from slack fingers. One dropped to his knees, his forehead pressing into the bloodied earth. Another followed. Then another. The pack circled them, fangs bared but silent, waiting. Amara stepped over her stepmother's smoking corpse, her boots crushing the fallen banner beneath her heel. On your feet, she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of thunder. The mercenaries scrambled up, their gazes darting between her and the Alpha King at her back. Dameon prowled forward, his shadow swallowing the trembling men whole. He gripped the nearest by the throat, dragging him close enough to taste his fear. Choose, he growled. The man's throat bobbed, his eyes darting to Amara. She tilted her head, her stormcloud eyes flickering with lightning. Swear fealty, she said, or join her in the dirt. The mercenary's knees hit the ground again, but this time his fist thumped over his heart. Stormclaw, he rasped. The word rippled through the ranks like wildfire, followed by the thud of dozens of knees hitting the earth. Amara walked through them, her fingers trailing over bowed heads, scenting each for deceit. One man flinched when her claws grazed his temple, his pupils dilated with poison. She paused, her lips curling. "Loyalty," she murmured, "isn't swallowed. It's earned." She flicked her wrist, and the man choked as his own hidden blade tumbled from his sleeve. Serafina lunged without command, her fangs finding his jugular before he could scream. The pack didn't stir. The lesson was written in blood before the body hit the ground. Dameon circled the remaining men like a storm front, his shadow stretching long in the dying light. He stopped before a grizzled mercenary whose knuckles were permanently stained with old blood. The man met his gaze, not with fear, but the weary respect of a warrior who'd outlived too many masters. "You fought well," Dameon acknowledged, his claws flexing. "Fight for her now." The mercenary's eyes flicked to Amara, then back. He spat on the stepmother's corpse and unbuckled his sword belt, letting it fall at her feet. "Stormclaw," he grunted. The pack's collective exhale was the only applause he'd get. The victory feast that night was a riot of firelight and fangs, the great hall thrumming with the pulse of drums and the scent of roasting boar. Amara sat atop the dais, where her stepmother had once held court, her fingers curled around the carved arms of the throne, not hesitantly, but possessively, her claws scoring the wood. Dameon lounged beside her, one hand draped over her thigh, his thumb tracing the Stormclaw sigil branded into her skin. Serafina slammed her tankard down, ale sloshing over the rim as she grinned at Amara. "To the fury born," she barked, and the pack's roar shook the rafters. Later, when the torches burned low and the pack had drunk themselves into a sprawl of contented wolves, Dameon dragged Amara into the moonlit courtyard. His teeth grazed her earlobe as he pinned her against the weathered oak, his voice rough with ale and want. "Tomorrow," he growled, "the elders will kneel as we take the oath under the blood moon. You'll wear my mark where all can see it." Amara arched into him, her breath hitching as his claws scraped the sensitive skin of her inner wrist. "I'll wear it," she agreed, nipping his lower lip. "But not as your mate, as your queen." The wind carried the scent of crushed juniper and distant snow as Dameon stilled, his golden eyes reflecting the embers of dying fires. "You think I'd make you choose?" he rasped, pressing his forehead to hers. Amara traced the scar that bisected his brow, a gift from her stepmother's blade. "I think," she murmured, "you've waited too long for a Stormclaw to kneel." His laugh was a rumble of thunder as he gripped her braid, tilting her head back. "Then stand with me," he ordered. "Let them see what happens when a king finds his equal." The blood moon hung low, staining the fortress stones crimson as the elders formed their circle. Serafina dragged the ceremonial dagger across her palm first, her blood sizzling against the ancient altar. One by one, the pack followed, until only Dameon and Amara remained. He didn't kneel. He gripped her wrist, his fangs piercing her palm where the crescent mark gleamed, their mingled blood dripping onto the stone. The earth shuddered. The Stormclaw dead howled in approval. Amara's voice cut through the silence. "Now you're mine too." If you are enjoying Amara and Dameon's story, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. 3 winters later, the pack's borders stretched farther than any Alpha King had claimed before. Scouts brought whispers of unrest in the southern kingdoms, kings who feared the Stormclaw banners snapping at their borders. Amara stood on the battlements, her belly round with Dameon's air, his teeth marks dark against her throat. He pressed a steaming mug into her hands, his claws careful against her fingers. "They'll kneel," he murmured, nodding to the distant torches. Amara sipped the spiced cider, her smile sharp. "Or burn."